Well, we're with Mark Munro today, the Chief Executive of Scottish Athletics, but that's not going to be that role for much longer, just a few days before you sign off after 10 years. How are you feeling just now, Mark?
Yeah, thanks, Peter. How am I feeling? Good question. Mixed emotions. I guess, first of all, before I talk about that, I think it's important that I do thank Ian Beattie and I thank the board of Scottish Athletics over the last 10 years, because ultimately they are the people that have given me the opportunity, whether that be as head of development initially, then laterally as chief executive, and they've supported me and mentored me through that process. So I guess it's a bit corny to say it, but I wouldn't be here without them. But they've been a phenomenal support to me and the rest of the staff. So I just want to start off by thanking Ian and the rest of the board. Yeah, definitely mixed emotions. You know, I'm very excited about the role at UK Athletics. I think it's something that, you know, is needed. I think that strategic oversight and how we develop the sport across the 4 home countries and with UK, so that working with the 5 organisations, I think it's a great opportunity to connect all that together and really support the general development of the sport and that infrastructure, particularly at grassroots, through the clubs and through coach development officials and facilities, etc. However, as you know, or anybody that knows me, I'm very passionate about athletics in Scotland and Scottish Athletics organisation. It's been a huge part of my life for the last 35 years. And as my family will know, I live and breathe athletics, and I've certainly lived and breathed Scottish Athletics for the last 10 years in respect to the organisation, the work. So no, it's mixed emotions, but very, very excited about the future as well.
Well, just looking to that period, you know, when over the past 10 years or so, what are the personal highlights? What are the sort of emotional ones that stick in your mind just at this moment?
I think the emotional ones, Peter, are always based around athlete performances. I could talk about, you know, the sport working together and all these things, but there's a few that absolutely stand out. And, you know, if you take, you know, recently Laura Muir's double at the European Indoors in Glasgow on home soil with a massive support in the crowd, it was a fantastic atmosphere. And she absolutely destroyed the fields in those respective events. I think Jake Whiteman, I've said to Jake on more than one occasion as well that I've seen both his championship medals that he's won. I've been in the stadium, so I'm clearly his good luck charm, and he needs to take me to the championships from now on with them. And then I think if you look at, you know, if you look back a little bit to Glasgow, 2014 Commonwealth Games, Libby Clegg's gold. Again, it was our only gold medal, and it was a phenomenal performance. And to have Paralympic events integrated within the Commonwealth Games back then was a real step forward. And then moving that on, if you look at likes of Kaylee Hago's world record at Meadow Mill recently, or Gavin Drysdale, and both of them winning gold at the World Para Championships last year, those are the types of performances that sit in your mind and think, wow, they were outstanding.
So it wasn't when you pulled on the spikes for the Lindsay's National Cross Country at Calendar Park in 2014. Out of interest, how many staff members did you actually beat that day?
I think, if we're honest, I think it was only one. I beat, was it one? I don't know. I was there down the pecking order. As you're well aware, when that bet was made about 5 months before the National, I wasn't the fittest I've ever been. And it's a long time since I'd pulled on a Scottish vest, that's for sure. And I was beaten by yourself, Peter, and one or two others. I don't want to give Jim McDonald any credit. Mark Pollard was way out there, and Nigel Hall was just in front of yourself, obviously.
It's all there in Power of 10, Mark, don't worry.
It's there, and people can look it up. But yes, yeah.
We were both very fortunate enough to be there in person in the Gold Coast in 2018 for that final day drama in the Commonwealth Games when Callum Hawkins led the marathon so spectacularly and for so long before calamity struck. And then out of a sort of heat haze, Robbie Simpson emerged, and the medal count for Team Scotland in athletics went up from 4 to 5. How do you describe your emotions that day?
Yeah, I mean, it was very emotional. If I think back to that, we'd been out early morning, if you remember, Peter. Sammy Kinghorn was in the wheelchair marathon in the morning, and you could just see the heat at that point in the day was really hard. I remember Sammy going past it, it's about 20 miles something, and, you know, kind of encourage her, and she just went, and you could just see how hot she was feeling at the time. And then, you know, a few hours later for the men's marathon to start, and I don't know, was it 30 degrees or 30 degree plus at that point, wasn't it? And then you're watching, and we'd tactically spread out across the course to support Callum and Robbie, and you know, Callum looked so comfortable, really comfortable, but there was always that concern that it's hot and it's humid. And I remember watching Callum come through the water station, his dad Robert, obviously his coach as well. I think it was about 37k, and handed over and change a cap and whatnot. And I was further up, further up the road from that as well, watched them a little bit. And I just remember, he must have been about 38k at the time, and he just started to wobble a little bit. And it wasn't like a wobble, it was a kind of just a sway, and he was running obviously down the lines, and you could just see him starting to wobble across the lines a little bit. And at that point, I ran back. There was a huge screen, if you remember, down on the beach, quite near where our hotel was based. So I ran back down there. I remember seeing John Beattie from the BBC, and he's like, oh, he's won it by miles. It's just, fantastic, great. And I was kind of not sure, because of what I'd just seen. And he's kind of like, right, okay. So by the time I got back to the beach, it was starting to unfold on the big screen. And at that point, I was joined by Ian Beattie and his wife Sandra, who were there as well. And we just watched this unfold, and God, you're feeling, for Callum, who we know Callum reasonably well, for he's come through the system, he's been a part, he's been available to Scottish Athletics, to supporters and various things. So you get to know the athletes, and you just felt so bad for Callum, leading by so far, and it's just horrific to watch, and you're worried about his health. You're frustrated with the officials who aren't helping him. You're a range of emotions there. Then you automatically flip back to his dad, Robert, who obviously is coach, but he's been a member of the staff team at Scottish Athletics in different roles since I've been involved over the last decade as well. So you start to feel for the family. And then, out of nowhere, watching the big screen, Robbie, who'd been very steady all the way through, and I think the last time I'd seen him in terms of times, he was sitting around about 8th. And I remember the second place athlete coming through the screen, and all of a sudden in the background, you could see the kind of the white vest, and I think he did have his white cap on. I just remember turning to Ian saying, is that Robbie? Is that Robbie? And you kind of like, so a wonderful performance by Robbie in the heat, coming through for that bronze medal. And then you flip back to, is Callum okay? And you're trying to find out if he's okay again. And then kind of afterwards, you're thinking about it, you think, crikey, in our roles, you do have to think about funding. You're set targets by national agencies, Scottish Government, and our target was minimum 5 medals, as you know, Peter, because you reported on it. And Robbie, the last medal of the championship was our 5th medal of the games, and we achieved our target. Not that mattered in the grand scheme of things, but you go through this range of emotions, and then you and I jumped on a flight home within an hour or so after I'd been down to hospital to see Callum, make sure he was okay. Then you and I jumped on a flight going home, and it was when we got off at the other end, you saw the media coverage around it. You realised the impact that performance from Callum had across the nation and beyond Scotland as well. So really difficult one, really difficult day, but obviously more difficult for Callum and his family.
The very definition, I think, of an emotional roller coaster for everyone, particularly obviously the athletes involved, but also for those watching. Just thinking back then, actually, over the sort of 10-year period that you've been involved, and not making necessarily a direct connection, but Lindsay Sharp, Ailey Doyle and Laura Muir have all been European champions during that period. And if we just look only at European medals, I think there's also medals for Steph Twell, Ailish McColgan, Jake Whiteman, Kirsten McCaslin, Chris O'Hare and Zoe Clark, and a Euro under-23 double for Gemma Reekie. And if you add in Eurocross individual medals, and obviously a lot of team medals there with GB, but individually for Callum Hawkins and for Andy Butchart, that's a dozen different athletes. Building a culture of success became a phrase and a soundbite for our overall strategy during your time as CEO. How do you feel about the way some of these performance athletes have been performing on the ground and seeing that repeated success, so that we've reached a point where we're now, there's an expectancy for multiple world-class athletes among our own community?
It's remarkable, isn't it? And you've mentioned the kind of track and field able-bodied athletes, some of the cross. We've also got mountain racing. Jacob was European champion, Andy was World Cup champion last year. You've got the ultra runners, and we've got other Paralympic stars as well who've been winning medals for the last decade. So again, I have said this before, I reflect back in 2012, I remember it. I was fortunate enough to be in the stadium a couple of times. We had 5 Scots, I think, on the GB team in 2012, and none of them got past the semi-finals. So if you fast forward from 2012 to 2019, where we had, I think, was it 7 performances in 2019 were in the top 10 in the World Track and Field Championships, 6 medals in para, the cross-country success, the mountain success. I'm not sure whether you and I back then, if we'd sat down after the London Olympics and said, this is where the sport will be in 7 years, or where the athletes and the coaches will be, I'm not sure I would have believed that. And I think we have to give absolute credit to the coaches, to the athletes themselves, to the support services and teams around that. But I think what I've seen most, and for me, it's a kind of mindset shift. So again, when I was a young athlete, a lot of Scottish coaches spoke about getting athletes to Commonwealth Games. It was seen to be the big thing. And when I came into the role in 2011, a lot of chat about Commonwealth Games. And that's kind of natural with Glasgow being 3 years after that. But I think now Scottish athletes and Scottish coaches truly believe that they deserve to be on a GB team, going to a major championship, no matter what the discipline. I also believe that they think they should make finals. And then they believe that when they're in finals, they should be in medal contention. And, you know, I'm really excited, and I hope that the Tokyo Olympics and Paralympics goes ahead, because I think it could be a cracking year for Scottish athletes. But I remember a conversation with Gemma Reekie and a separate one with Ben Greenwood, probably about 3-4 years ago in the Emirates Arena. Just when you're chatting, they're probably getting treated on the table, and we're kind of, you know, hanging around that kind of finish area. I remember having a chat, and I remember both athletes talking about finals, and they were talking about major championship finals, and that was the mindset of those athletes. And I think that's where the sport, and I think that's where youngsters coming through, whether it's the National Academy or just coming through in general, I think they all believe they can make GB teams, and I think that's the change, the significant change.
Well, you've taken us nicely through the sort of sport in the decade or so that you've been directly involved. What about Scottish athletics as a governing body? What's your recollection of that, of how it looked early in 2011, and how have those aspects changed?
Yeah, and listen, I think for me, during that period, the sport has absolutely pulled together, and you have to give credit to everyone involved, because it's a bit of a jigsaw puzzle, isn't it? You know, every piece has to fit to make it work, and if there's parts missing, then you can't complete it and things like that, you know. But I think the board have given a very strong direction for the sport, and Ian Beattie has spoken a lot about the sport working together in the same direction and trying to achieve that. I think we've invested a lot into clubs and people, whether that's club leaders, club development programs, coaches, athletes themselves, far more focus around supporting officials development, how to make our events better. So I think when I look at that period, I think, and the new strategy, Building a Culture for Success, which was launched in 2018, it's very much about working together and investing into the sport. And I see our role as a governing body, we're a membership organisation first and foremost. And I tell the staff, you know that, I tell the staff that regularly. What's important are athletes, clubs, coaches, officials, event organisers, and people around that. But that's our core business. We are employed to support our members, and that's our function. I think we all believe that, and we're all trying to achieve that. But if you come out, you know, away from the arena in terms of competition and athlete performances, even things like, you know, our 4-year audit through Sports Scotland KPMG, or you look at the equality standard or the safeguarding standards, Scottish athletics are now achieving the highest level, whether that's, you know, satisfactory being the highest level within the kind of the audit process, or whether that's advanced standard and quality or 100% of the safeguarding standards. So as well as trying to support the sport on the ground, and the governance of the sport is very strong as well.
Well, that's quite a lot of that work probably goes on in the background, but Club Together was something that a bit of a game changer, and probably quite relevant and focal point for clubs themselves, putting paid people into roles to help grow the sport. You know, it's still working now, 10 years on. What are your reflections on that programme when you look, and now that you look back on the way it developed, how clubs took it forward?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, the clubs in Scotland are brilliant, and have been brilliant, and have really bought into what we're trying to do over the last decade. When I look back at Club Together, for me, it was a catalyst for change, a catalyst for what I would term modernisation. And I remember a very clear conversation when it first started. I went over to Kilbarchan to speak to the committee, and I remember speaking to John Roger about some projects and the initiatives we had and ideas. And I remember what he said to me very clearly, and I remember driving back home thinking, right, he's absolutely spot on. How are we going to support volunteers? And he said to me, Mark, these initiatives are great, but we are volunteers. Just remember, we are volunteers, and you can't keep layering things onto us, because we're trying to, first and foremost, our focus is on supporting our club and developing our own club. And these initiatives are great and they do help, but we don't have the time to do them. And Club Together was very much at the time about increasing capacity of volunteers by bringing in some paid people on the ground, almost like club developers. We called them Club Together officers. And I remember Kilmarnock were the first club to buy into that. And very quickly in the first year, I think we would hope to pilot 3 or 4 clubs in the first year. And by the end of the year, we had 17 clubs bought into that. And their role was very much around growing capacity in those clubs, increasing the numbers of participants within those clubs, and growing the sport. But what's happened is, I think that's the catalyst where we've seen the general modernisation, and very quickly we became challenged as a governing body to say, well, we want to look at our legal status and our club management structures as a club. We want to know how we're going to develop our coaching structures better. We want to look at income generation. And it became about treating clubs as small businesses and as 7-day-a-week operations. And through the kind of club modernisation project, as it became, and it still is, and what's transpired on the back of that, you know, if you look at the National Club Leaders Conference, when you put Scottish clubs on the stand to talk about what they're doing, they are advancing year on year on year, and other clubs are catching up, they're sharing good practice, they're following suit, or they are going off and doing different things, advancing in other ways. And for me, going back to Club Together, that was the catalyst for investment, for support, and for change into the club network within Scotland. And ultimately, all you can do is provide that support to clubs. Ultimately, clubs do it themselves, and they have taken that mantle on and really driven it forward.
Well, we'd love this to be a COVID-free conversation, but it's probably too significant to ignore. You said last summer, quite memorably, in an interview, that the sport can't just write off 2020, and it definitely didn't. You know, there was still a fair bit happening, and a lot of effort put in to make those events happen. In fact, how confident are you that the framework is there for athletics in Scotland to flourish whenever we reach a point where restrictions have eased?
Yeah, it's been a difficult period for everyone, hasn't it? I mean, this is what, we're at 10 months almost exactly since the office, you know, closing. We've never been back near the place since then, and club activity has been impacted, events have been hugely impacted during that period. And I guess our approach to COVID has been, well, first of all, we need to put the safety of our members first. But within the restrictions and the guidelines imposed upon sport, or imposed upon Scottish athletics, is how can we try to get the right activity going, whether that's getting club bubbles back together or whether that's getting some form of competition going. And I really do feel for Ali Love and Caitlin Watt within our events team, who have planned, adapted, revised, sometimes had to shelve things, then gone through this cycle for the last 10 months. And they're doing it just now with indoors and looking towards the end of the cross-country season and things like that. So it's really tough for everyone. But you know, the clubs have responded brilliantly, and you can see that online. And there's some wonderful initiatives going on, whether they're virtual or whether it's engaging with their members and doing lots of different things. And I hope that come mid-February, March, we'll start to get back to bubbles of activity, and we can start getting club activity going again. We can start getting some kind of bubble type competition going again, and hopefully by the summer we see a huge change. But there's been a hit, you know, in terms of the numbers of people participating, how people are feeling about participating in the sport, whether that's officiating, coaching, or actually runners and athletes. And however, you know, and numbers have dropped. Your membership's down about 30%, and we know that. But I think what we've developed over the last decade, and I guess I have to credit everyone that's gone before that as well, within this, is we've got a really strong, robust structure for the sport. The investment, from an investment perspective, we're in a strong place in context of where we are. So that side of things is solid. But I think all the work we've done around club frameworks, around how we're starting to develop coaches, how we're supporting athletes, and none of that stopped. We're still supporting athletes and coaches. It's all there. It exists. So it's not like going back to 2011 when it was all kind of fresh and new. How do we work with clubs? How should we develop the system? The system exists. The system needs to be evolved. and I'm sure the next CEO and the team will continue to take it in an upward trajectory. But we will have to plan how we move out of COVID over the next 8, 9, 10 months, because it's not going to be easy. But our clubs are strong, robust, highly skilled people, and they will do that. And I'm very positive we will be in a good place in a year's time.
Well, just since you've mentioned the membership, that is an important point. But in actual fact, up to the end of December, I think we're pretty sure that there's 75% of the membership had remained particularly loyal and stuck with Scottish Athletics. So I know you'll want to thank people for that patience and loyalty. How important is it that the membership stick with the governing body and stick with helping the sport?
Yeah, so first of all, there are lots of thank yous, and thank you to everyone who has renewed their membership to this point and stuck with us. Thank you to the clubs who really supported us through the annual affiliation returns back in August, September time, because that really helped us. And I guess what we've seen over the last couple of months especially is there's been a significant drop in membership because we've not had the events programme, and we appreciate that. But the membership income is so important to how we support the development of the sport. So I would absolutely urge, whilst we thank everyone who has renewed to this point, I would please urge everyone to renew your membership and keep supporting the governing body, because if we're going to come through this and we continue to invest back into clubs, back into coaches and athletes and officials and improving events, then we need to make sure that we're in a financially solid position. We're in a good place, but we do need our membership to continue to renew wherever possible. And I appreciate it's not appropriate for everyone to be able to be in a position to do that, but at the same time, those who can, I would urge them to do that, please. Yeah.
Well, on that note, is it true that it was the Farms 1990 hit All Together Now that gave you the idea for the hashtag SAL Together?
I thought you'd claimed that one, Peter, to be honest. I'm sure that's what you said, but no, listen, I think we went through that. I remember sitting down with the team and yourself, including Sue Guyford as well, looking at the branding and from a social media perspective, how do we keep the sport connected? And I think credit to yourself, Peter, and Sue, and how we communicate, whether that's through the website or whether it's through social media. But when we develop those hashtags, believe, belong, achieve together, I think that is so important, and it's very much about keeping that sport keeping our sport connected, keeping everyone supporting each other. And when you see, likes of a Laura Muir congratulating a Chris Bennett, a hammer thrower, for a performance in a championship or a competition somewhere abroad, and you just see that, all those kind of connections going on, it is great to see. And then when you see clubs congratulating athletes thanking them, and doing, you just see this kind of connection across the sport at all levels. And that kind of hashtag of SAL Together, SAL Believe, they're so important, but they're so true. And it is very important we continue to do that, especially over the next 10, 12 months while we're in the lockdown sort of phases.
So finally, will you keep wearing Joma on your days off?
I should, yeah. Joma have been a fantastic sponsor. Good plug there, Peter. But they've been really great, and I'm sure Andrew Barrowman will continue to send me some kit, I'm sure, on the side. But no, not just Joma, but we should really thank all our partners who have really, particularly in this last 10-month period, who have stuck by us through thick and thin, and are allowing us to move forward as we start to come out of this other side. So no, we're very fortunate at Scottish Athletics to have really 7 or 8 really core and really positive and supportive partners, and thank you to them as well.
Thanks very much, Mark.